I'm struggling. Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to the Everlasting Project. I'm your host, Marlena Azul, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about embracing change. And part of the reason that I wanted to make this episode is that I recently put a post on my Instagram story, or a poll, sorry, on my Instagram story, asking you guys what you were more afraid of. Are you more afraid of change and facing the unknown, or are you more afraid of staying the same and staying stagnant? Because for me, the answer is simple. That's not to say that I'm not happy where I am. I absolutely love my life. I couldn't be more grateful for everything that I have and everything I've achieved. But I don't want to stay stagnant. I do not like staying on one level for a very long time, okay? I am ready for the next level of me, of my spiritual journey, of my abundance, of my career. Like, I am ready to level up. I do not want to stay the same. I do not want to avoid change just because I'm afraid of taking risk. And according to the poll results, a lot of you felt the same way. Most people who voted that they were more afraid of staying the same. However, I did get a few DMs of people saying that even though they are afraid of staying the same, they want to change. They also felt stagnant. They felt paralyzed, like the desire to change was not enough to overcome that fear, to take the next step, to take that risk. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how to overcome that fear of facing the unknown and step into your new reality, because that is what this work is all about, right? It is about improving ourselves, it is about improving our lives and really just creating the lives that we desire, that we know are meant for us. And I think that one of the first steps is recognizing that you want to change. And that's a step that a lot of you, or at least those who voted on that poll, you recognize that you want change in your life. You recognize that you maybe aren't happy with where you are right now, or you're just ready for the next step and you want change. Okay. But it is understandable that maybe you don't know how to take that next step. I know I was on that boat a while ago, and that is why I do what I do, right? Because I have figured out this sort of framework on how to keep leveling up whenever I'm ready to level up. And that's what I teach you guys, right? That's what I want to share with you. That is what I talk about in my workshop. That is what I talk about on social media. And that is kind of what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into it, because the fear of risk, right? That feeling of uncertainty, yes, it's scary. I know that. Okay. Like I said, I've definitely been there. Sometimes, of course, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, right? I still struggle sometimes with my limiting beliefs. I have the tools to overcome them, yes. So it does become easier over time. But there are challenges that I face. There are mental blocks that I come across where sometimes I do get scared, right? I do get very anxious. But the only other option is staying exactly where you are. Like, if you don't overcome that fear, that anxiety, those doubts, and you don't take the leap, the other option is not changing. The other option is staying where you are and your life staying the way it is now, and possibly ending up living with a lot of regret because you didn't take those risks. There's actually this kind of trend going around social media where people, especially in the personal growth community, will ask the question, or it's kind of like a prompt, right? To think about when your grandkids ask you what you did in your 20s and 30s, what do you want to be able to tell them, right? And this is regardless of age, but usually that's the age range that they use in those posts. So that's the one I'm going to share. But that's the question, right? What do you want to be able to tell your grandkids? Do you want to be able to tell them that you took risks and that you took steps to better your life and better yourself? Or would you rather tell them that you just kind of sat around and waited for your life to get better and it never did, right? Because if you don't take action, nothing changes. I always say it, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I know it may sound repetitive, I know it may sound a little cliche, but it is so true. And you guys need to understand that, right? And if your answer is the former, that you would rather tell your grandkids that you took risks and that you created the reality that you wanted to create, then you're in the right place, because that's exactly what we're talking about today. So, first, let me mention this. Like I said earlier, not long ago, I was definitely in this same state where I was feeling paralyzed, I was stagnant. And by not long ago, I mean, at this point, I mean like 5 years or so. So, I've been doing this work for a pretty long time. but I do know what it's like to feel that fear. I do know what it's like to feel stuck. So that's the first thing I want to say is that you're not alone here, okay? There are so many other people who are working through this same stagnation and this same sort of feeling of paralysis. The next thing I want to say is that getting out of that rut, it may not be easy, but it's definitely a lot more simple than you think. And in the next like 15 minutes or so, we're going to break it down together. And let's hop right in because this is a topic I'm very passionate about, right? It took me a really long time to figure all of this out, and I am handing it to you on a silver platter in the next, like I said, 15, 20 minutes. But I really wish I could go back and tell my younger self, like, do all these things and everything will be fine. And something I always say is like, if I could go back and tell my younger self those things, I wouldn't really have learned the lessons that I learned along the way, right? There's a reason that I had to struggle so much over the years to learn these things and to overcome these challenges and barriers. I feel that the reason for that is that now I can teach them to you guys. However, it would be so cool if I could go back and be like, just make it easier for myself, you know what I mean? But now I have the opportunity to do that for you. So let's get right in. If I were still in that feeling of stagnation, feeling stuck, feeling paralyzed, like I don't know what to do next, here's exactly what I would do. First thing is, I would try to get super, super clear on exactly what I want in my life, what I want my life to look like, what I want myself to look like, right? Like, what identity do I want to step into? And if you're still here, it's very clear to me that, like, you want to see change in your life, right? You want to learn how to take those steps. But the thing is, it's not enough to just acknowledge that you want change. You have to know exactly what change you want to see. Because if you don't know what you want to change, you don't know what action you need to take. We'll get into all of this. So, the first thing I'm going to recommend, some of you guys already know what I'm going to say, journaling. Get your journal out and do some self reflection on exactly what you want out of life. What do you want your life to look like? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to present as every day? What do you want to have in your life that you don't currently have? So that's step one. You want to get very clear on your desired life. And it's not enough to be like, I want to be wealthy and travel the world. That is not good enough. Okay. I'm so sorry to break it to you, but you have to get so detailed. Like, I want you guys to be able to write a book on what you want your life to look like. And that is why we have the main character method, right? And by the way, I have a new freebie. I have changed up my digital products a little bit. Okay, so we now have the main character method workshop, of course, which is a 3-day workshop. It is absolutely life changing. You have visualization meditations in there, one for each day of the workshop. You also have on demand video lessons. You get the main character method workbook included in there as well. And every single day, you're going to come out with so much detail on each step of the main character method. However, if you're not quite ready for that yet, I do have a new freebie, and that is going to be the main character method framework. So that's what's going to get you started on the path of the main character method, which we're briefly touching on today, right? Like, a lot of this self-discovery, a lot of this kind of like figuring out who you want to become and embodying that version of you is the essence of the main character method. So I'm going to leave those links for you guys down below. But let's get back to what I was saying, which is that it's not enough to just be like, I want to be rich and I want to travel, right? And that's just an example, of course. Different people want different things, but that's the easiest example because I feel like that is what a lot of people's definition of success is, and that may change over time, but you also have to get a lot more clear on what your definition of success is. Like I said earlier, you have to be able to write a book on it. So you want to know exactly what your day-to-day looks like. What time do you wake up in the morning? How do you dress? How do you take your coffee, right? Like, whatever detail you can think of, you should journal about. If you want to be wealthy, okay, wonderful. But what kind of wealth do you want to have? Do you want to be wealthy because you've started your own company and you're an entrepreneur? Do you want to be wealthy because you're the CEO of a big corporate company? If you want to travel, how often do you want to travel? For how long? Where do you want to go exactly? Like, plan out an itinerary if you have to. For the third time, you want to be able to write a literal book on what you want your life to look like. And that is all step one, okay? The journaling, the self-discovery, the figuring out what you want out of life and who you want to become. Then step two is, once you have all this clarity, right? Once you know exactly what you want your life to look like, you have to take action toward that life. A huge part of reality creation is what you do every day to get you there, to create that reality. Because yes, it is wonderful to be able to think of something and visualize it and, acknowledge that it's coming to you and yours and do your affirmations and stuff, but you have to take action. That is a huge part of it. You have to take the aligned action that's going to get you there. So this brings me to step 2, which is figuring out what the aligned action is. And this may not always come to you right away, right? The more you do things, the more inspiration you get, the more motivated you get, but you want to start somewhere. You want to have a starting point. You want to have kind of like your base level steps. And you can kind of work backwards, right? So let's say you've decided based on step 1 that your ideal self is this wealthy entrepreneur. You travel the world and you experience new things and you have all this detail on what your day-to-day life looks like. So now I want you to think about what this version of you, right? This version of you that makes their own schedule, makes passive income, what do they do differently from what you're doing now? And I kind of want to walk you through my thought process. So, first of all, they took a risk and they started a business. So, this probably means that they have overcome their limiting beliefs and their fears about running a business, about their ability to be an entrepreneur, about their limiting beliefs around finances and money and income. They've gotten past that fear of uncertainty. They've pushed through their insecurities and started posting and marketing themselves on social media. They made time, they found time wherever they could in their day to work on their business every single day. And that's kind of all big picture, right? But now you want to think about what you can do today. What can you do in the short term that is going to get you started on this path? So something you might want to do, and I'm using all this example, but of course you can apply it to literally any goal you have. You can apply it to any type of business, any type of life you desire, any type of reality. But in this example, maybe you want to sit down and brainstorm what kind of business you want to create. What niche do you want to get into, if you even want a niche? And you also want to write down tasks that you can do moving forward, whether that's daily tasks, weekly tasks. And I want to pause for a second because this obviously doesn't address the biggest issue, which is that paralysis, right? Part of feeling stuck and not knowing how to move forward is feeling overwhelmed. And again, without action and without forward movement, changes aren't just going to fall into your lap. So you really want to be able to move past that stagnation, that paralysis, and get things done. So something I like to do once I have my action steps, right? Once I have written down the daily and weekly tasks that I have to do to get me to this desired reality, is I like to organize them. And prioritization is a skill that you can work on, but I'm going to get you started with these couple of categories. The first one is inspired by Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is like a prioritization matrix. And this method categorizes your tasks into 4 categories. The first one is important and urgent. The second one is important but not urgent. The third one is not important and not urgent. And the fourth one is urgent but not important. I think I got all of those right, but hopefully you get the gist. And ideally, those that are important and urgent are the things you have at the top of your to-do list. Organizing your tasks this way gives you an idea of what you need to do first. And then the things that are not urgent and not important, like they do not relate to your goals, they are not aligned with you at all, those are things that you can either delegate or you can knock them off your to-do list altogether. And there is something very satisfying about taking something off your to-do list without even having to do it. So there may be tasks that you think are really important at first, like, oh my God, I have to get this done. But then once you categorize them, you realize, wait, this has nothing to do with my goals. There's no sense of urgency here. Why am I even doing this? And then you can either hand it off or get rid of it altogether. Now, the second categorization method I like to use, and this is really one of my favorites. You can also combine these 2 methods, but the second one is in terms of energy consuming and time consuming. So this not only helps me decide when to do certain tasks, but it also keeps me on track. So for example, if I only have like 15 minutes between meetings, I might usually sit there and scroll through social media because I don't know what else to do. But if I have a list with one side is like very time consuming or very energy consuming, and one side is not time consuming, not energy consuming, I might pick something off this list where I can be like, this will take 15 minutes to do and knock it out of the park. So you just look at your list and see what can I tackle in the amount of time I have. Or if you're using in terms of energy consuming, you can be like, you know what? I got amazing sleep last night. I am so energized. My coffee hit perfectly, let me look at my list and see what is going to take up a lot of my energy and a lot of mental bandwidth and do that right now because I'm so freaking energized. And that is all step two, by the way, right? That is all part of figuring out what action steps are going to get you toward your desired reality and toward your ideal self. And then, obviously, as I explained, a huge part of that is organizing it to kind of get over that hump of feeling paralyzed, of not knowing what to do first. If you have these lists and these kind of categorization methods, you have this beautiful map in front of you, right? Of like, what can I do right now? Where's my energy at? How much time do I have? Okay, this one, check, period. And by the way, I know this is all a lot to take in and we're not even done yet, okay? So I really hope you guys are taking notes or at the very least, save this, add it to your favorites, and listen to it when you're able to take notes. So obviously, don't take notes if you're listening to this in the car or anything. But I do hope that you'll come back and listen to this when you can and follow along with the exercises because you guys, I'm basically giving you a blueprint. I'm giving you a roadmap here that you can follow to reduce those feelings of stagnation and make sure that you're taking the steps toward that desired reality because, of course, that's the most important part of it all. You want to take consistent action, even if it's little steps, right? It doesn't have to be huge. And I think that's another thing that stops a lot of people. Like, if you feel like you have this huge overarching goal, it is so overwhelming. That is why we break it down into action steps. That is why we want to get so detailed on our goal that we know exactly what is going to get us to each part of our goal, if that makes sense. And it is okay to break it down into small steps because those small steps, I'm sure you've heard it before, add up and create huge changes. So if you're taking that consistent aligned action daily, you will see progress. It might be slower, it might take more time, or it may take less time depending on the goal, depending on how much time and effort you put into it, depending on how aligned you are. Okay, so be patient with yourself. Don't guilt yourself if you don't see something coming through right away. Don't feel judgment toward yourself if maybe you miss something on your to-do list or you feel like resting. Give yourself that time to rest. That is a huge part of the alignment because generally speaking, if you're successful, right, and you have the life of your dreams, you also have the time for self-care. You also have the time to rest. And a huge part of aligning with the ideal self is giving yourself that space to rest and recover when you need it. Aligning with the ideal self means showing up as them every day. And like I was saying, if your ideal self is this successful, wealthy entrepreneur who travels, makes their own schedule, even if right now you don't have the option to make your own schedule, you can do little things throughout your day where you take control of your schedule. And that is all touching on a whole nother topic that maybe I'll cover in the coming weeks. But let's get back into it because we have one more step here. And the last one, and probably the most important, although all of it is very important, is the follow through. I will say this is probably one of the most challenging steps, right? Doing the self-discovery, not that it's easy, but it's simple, right? You can just sit down and journal. You can kind of talk to yourself. You can talk to somebody else and kind of brainstorm a little bit. Writing out the action steps, again, it may not be easy, but it's very simple. But making a commitment to yourself to show up every single day as the ideal self, to take aligned action every day, to break habits that may be really hard to break, that's a challenge, okay? And I'm not saying that this is the most challenging step because it's like inherently difficult, but because, like I said, habits can be very hard to break. So if you're used to sitting down and scrolling on TikTok for 2 hours every day after work or in between meetings, and you've done this for years, it is going to be very difficult to fill up that time doing something else. You have to be very conscious and very aware of what you're doing, where your mind is at, and you have to keep reminding yourself that I have goals. I need to do something differently if I want to see change in my life. So something I like to do here is set reminders on my phone, okay? You can set alarms, you can set reminders. So for example, going back to that scrolling example, if you know that you usually scroll every day after work, set an alarm for the time you get home from work to remind yourself that you have to do something differently, okay? And this doesn't mean that you can't sit down and scroll and turn your brain off for a little while, but it means that you are remembering that you made a commitment to yourself, right? You're dedicating yourself to your new life and to your future. Another thing you can do is set a wallpaper on your phone, right? So something I love to do, and I'm going to show it to you now actually. This is my wallpaper. It is my vision board, okay? I made this on Canva, super easy to make, and I just put it on my phone. So every time I go to unlock my phone, it is a reminder, okay, that I have dreams, I have big goals, and time is precious. There is no time to waste. So let's do something that is aligned with my goals. And of course, I briefly mentioned this before, but this is not to say that you have to be perfect all the time. Nobody is, absolutely not. It's just a matter of taking more aligned action than not. It's a matter of being conscious and aware that if you want to see change in your life, it's up to you. You have to be the change. You have to take the action. It is about making a commitment to your future self and your current self, because when you align with your ideal self and you start to take those steps, it is benefiting you right now. It is benefiting your present version of you. And by the way, another benefit of doing these exercises is that when you do the work up front, and it's not a lot of work, by the way, this whole thing shouldn't take more than like 30 minutes. And I'm talking about doing the reflection and you're writing down your action steps and organizing it and all that. It really shouldn't take that long, but you do all that work up front. And the way I like to think about it is you're literally bringing your inner desires to life by putting them on paper, by journaling about them. You are bringing them from your mind into the physical world. And to me, that is really inspiring and empowering. And it makes the dreams feel so much more tangible. And the more tangible they feel, the more realistic they feel to you, the more motivated you'll be to make them a reality, right? To bring them into your 3D world, your environment. It really lights that fire under you, and sometimes that's all you need to help you get started. So let's recap a little bit before we end today's episode, because I know that was a lot to take in. Again, I hope you guys were taking notes, or that you'll come back and actually follow along with me, do these exercises, maybe even grab the main character method framework or the workshop in my Stan store, because this is how you are going to achieve that dream reality. This is how you're going to create the reality that you want and bring it to life in a way that is super authentic and super aligned. So let's recap. Step 1, get super clear on what you want your life to look like. Reflect, journal, okay? Look deeply within yourself and figure out exactly what your desires are, what you want out of life, what you want your life and yourself to look like. Once you're very clear on that, you're going to identify the action steps that are going to get you moving toward that desired outcome, that desired reality. And you're going to organize those steps in terms of, the methods that I gave you about organizing them in terms of importance and urgency, in terms of time consuming and energy consuming. Those are just ways to get started. That's what has been working for me for a long time. But if you guys figure out another way that works better for you to categorize your tasks, by all means, go for it. All of this inner work and this personal development is about what works for you, right? What you can stick to, what you enjoy. So if you find a different way to do it that works better for you, please go for it. But anyway, let's get back to it. So step 1, get clear. Step 2, action steps and organizing your action steps. And finally, step 3, implementing those actions into your daily life, getting aligned with your ideal self. Set reminders, use visuals, stay very aware of your goals, and notice when they change as well. When you notice a change in your environment, also don't forget to celebrate even the smallest wins. Because a lot of the time we get stuck thinking about like what's not working when we should really be thinking about what am I doing right? Oh my goodness, like I am seeing these changes in my life. Okay, just remember that every step, no matter how small, if you're going in the right direction, is a step toward your ideal self. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not already subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I have a new episode for you every Sunday. And if you found the episode valuable, please be sure to rate it 5 stars. It helps me to connect with more beautiful souls like yourself who are also on their journey of personal growth. And if you want to connect with me further, make sure to follow me on social media. I'm at the Marlena Azul across platforms. And as we come to the end of today's episode, don't forget that the journey of self-development and self-discovery is everlasting. So keep doing the inner work, keep taking that aligned action, and until next time, I wish you the very best in health and happiness. Bye!